Sike here. Welcome to another episode of Escaping the American Trap. And today I've got a question. And the question is, why is the bill so high? That's my question. And you know, it's such a simple question, but nobody will ask that question. Now, if you remember back when Obamacare was going through, and I watched countless debates on how we're going to pay the bill. Everybody asked the question, how are we going to pay the bill? And I'm talking about our medical cost here in America. Now, if there ever was an American trap, it's our healthcare system. And like I said, over and over, you hear all these news programs and everyone asking, how are we going to pay the bill? How are we going to pay the bill? Well, now here's my question. Why is the bill so high? Now, one of my sons ended up having an appendicitis, and he needed his appendix removed. And it wasn't a medical emergency. And at the moment, and at the time, I would have given everything I owned and lived in a tent for the rest of my life for him to live. Because if he didn't get the procedure done, he would have died. So, of course, you know, when you're in that kind of a medical emergency and that kind of need, you're ready to pay everything you've got. And they use this against us. Our system uses this against us, for sure, 100%. Because then when we got the bill, he was in the hospital for 3 days. He needed emergency surgery. And you're just thankful that we have this technology and he can be saved at this point with modern medicine. But then you get the bill, and I went through the bills, and of course I had medical insurance, and I think out of pocket for that particular year, it probably cost me about $4,000 or $5,000 out of my pocket. Now the bill was $60,000. So for 3 days of service, it cost $60,000. Okay, now the surgeon, the doctors, I would say if I put a time on how long they spent actually with them, you're probably looking at best 2 hours. So that was 2 hours of doctor's time. Now, the initial, figuring out what was wrong, testing and all that, the doctors were with them for probably, if you estimated the entire time of where they actually spent of their time working to figure out the problem, you're looking at maybe 15 minutes at best. Now the surgery went great and everything was good. So you're looking at, I think we were in the waiting room for maybe an hour, hour and a half, and he came out of surgery. Then after that, for the 3 days of recovery and on the antibiotics and making sure that his system wasn't being attacked by bacteria or anything like that, having a intravenous antibiotics being given to him, which was the reason why he had to stay in the hospital. I'd say doctors came in maybe once a day, check how he was, a different doctor every time, and they spent probably 5 minutes. Now the nursing staff, they would come in, they had their routine, they would come in on their schedules, and they would look at his chart, maybe check his IVs and things like that. But I would say if you put a time on it, like how long they were in that room with the amount of times they went in and out throughout a day, maybe, let's say 45 minutes at best. Now, most of the time, the family members took care of him. Now, we had the bed, we had the space, but for his, minute-to-minute needs, there was always a family member with him. So then my question is, why for 3 days of service, and if you counted up the total time of actually people doing work on him or with him, you're probably looking at a maximum of 5 to 6 hours. Was it $60,000? Now, get cancer, have a broken leg, any kind of hospital stay, even going to the doctors nowadays. I remember when I was a kid, we would go to Dr. Navajay, and I think this was in the 70s, and his office visit was about maybe $20, I think, back then, which I guess, looking at the cost of living and what you made, maybe it's relative today, but my out-of-pocket pay, because everyone is a specialist nowadays, so out-of-pocket pay, you're looking at For an average visit with a good plan, just the visit is going to be $25, but then they're charging the insurance company. So your visits, a regular doctor's visit can be upwards of $500 for a visit. So obviously, for the average working American, middle-class American, if you don't have insurance for whatever reason, and you get hit with a medical bill of $60,000, you've just been crushed for the rest of your life for one incident, one happening. That's not including all the other things that you're going to encounter over a lifetime. So why hasn't anyone asked, why is it so expensive? And I don't know the answer to that. I can't figure it out. I love when you go to the doctors and they tell you, this is a great one. We go to the doctors and the guy says, no, that's not my specialty. I need to reschedule you with a specialist for whatever your condition is. Now, he's going to charge you that your copay. They're going to charge the insurance company, and basically you're being charged for a guy to say to you, "Yep, sorry, I can't help you." That's like going to the mechanic shop. He looks at your car and it's a Ford, and he only works on Chevys. And he looks at your Ford and he goes, "Well, you know, I see you got a problem there with it, but I don't work on Ford. Sorry, can't help you. You got to go to a Ford specialist. That's going to be $500. Same damn thing. So I love the fact that they have this system in play where they charge you for nothing. They don't even do anything. And it's a system they have. I go to the same medical complex. And these guys, they'll run you in circles. You'll go to one doctor, he goes, "Oh, no, can't help you." Then you go to another doctor. This is a true story. I go to the doctors with my son. They can't figure out what's wrong with him. First we go to the hospital. Then they send us to our regular doctor. He sends us to another doctor. That doctor sends us to another doctor. By the third doctor, I look at him and he's disgusted. I'm disgusted. At this point, the condition is starting to just kind of go away on its own. And I go, "Hey, you want to get out of here?" He goes, "Yeah, let's get out of here." We just got up and left. The doctor was out doing something like checking some chart or looking on his computer or whatever the heck he was doing. And we just got up and walked right out of the place. I walked up to the receptionist and I told her, "I'm not giving you any money. I'm not giving you the $40 because, of course, we're at a specialist at this point, and it's the third guy we've seen." And they were literally running us in circles in the same building, charging us along the way. It was like, do not pass go, but give us $200 is what it comes down to. So that's my question. Why is the bill so high? Can anyone answer this? Here's another great thing. The AMA, the American Medical Association. Do you know that they spend on an average, depending on what bills or what laws are being passed in Washington, they spend an average of $30 million a year. That's $30 million that they're giving to the politicians. For what? For our interest? No, for their interest. And I also know of another gentleman who's, he's actually just a business guy. He's a president of a company, and his side gig is he's on the board of a hospital. So here you have a guy who's not a doctor. He's just basically a businessman who figures out how to make money, and he's actually on the board of directors of a hospital as his side gig, and who knows how much he makes for that, and he doesn't come cheap. So I think that part of the cost of $60,000 is you got a bunch of people on there, because this is a business, of course. And then also I believe it comes down to the insurance companies themselves, because they're making money. Now, that bill might be $60,000 for me or you, but then an insurance company comes in and they're the big wigs, and they tell the hospital, "Well, we're really only going to give you $10,000. So the hospital's billing out $60,000 to the average yahoo, the working class American who's making the world go round, and the insurance companies who's, sucking the life out of us, they're paying 10 grand. Go make sense of that. So there's a good example of being caught in this American trap. It's terrible. I don't know how you get out of it. Well, I can tell you how you get out of it. Have nothing. If you have nothing, then you can't pay nothing, but I guess they won't let you die, because you don't hear about people dying in the streets yet. So I guess that's the idea, is to have absolutely nothing in America. If you're dirt poor, well, then you can get a pill. If you're out working every day and you're doing slave to the grind, well, then you're paying for it, and that's America today. So that's my rant of the day. The only way this is all going to change is if somehow the people unite, we get together, we have a loud enough voice, and we make the powers to be realize that we've had enough, and we're not going to be slaves to this system, slaves to the 1% of the 1%, and we're gonna stop. And you shut the machine down. The only problem we have is that we can't organize enough to do that as a society and as a people. It's just not happening.